That's my baby girl right there. Ooh, she with her friends. I'm a dog, I ain't shit. I'ma wind up hitting her friends. Bad guy, outlaw. Ooh, I'm like Pac, but I ain't die after the second time I got shot.
What's good? This is your boy Tico Trend, aka Internal Sadist, and this is going to be a podcast about debunking. This is going to be debunking 3, basically. The topics that I'm going to be debunking today are going to be Purple Pill, DS Dynamic, Who Has the Power for Real, um, Men Who Sell a Lifestyle, Single Moms Because Men, and abortions, for, rape or climate change purposes, for all intents purposes. So that's going to be the topics I'm going to go over today for all intents purposes. So this should be fun. We should have a lot of fun with this, basically, debunking all these topics. And if you have any more topics that you would like me to debunk or face against or basically get my opinion on it, just let me know, put it in the comment section or email me and let me know, and I'll pretty much debunk that shit or let you know what I think about the shit for all intents purposes. Um, starting right now with the whole entire, you know, uh, starting right now with the whole entire topic. Basically, this segment was started based on somebody wanted me to basically go over my opinions on various things when it comes to manosphere and stuff like that for all intents purposes. So somebody basically wanted me to go over this various things and ask me for my opinions on various things in the manosphere. So I'm giving my honest opinion on it from a clinical standpoint, like a psychological standpoint, and I'm giving it on it from my personal standpoint. So that's typically how this whole entire series came about. Um, the irony to it is, how everybody always clings to everything, trying to make it sound like it's really something that actually works and stuff like that, when in fact it's really not. And basically, all it really is a bunch of people making it seem as though that is special to them, or it's basically a nice version of a It's basically all these things are basically the theoretical or the metaphorical Linus blanket for all intents and purposes. So all these things basically make it sound as if they can justify it by doing these things for the fact that they're doing it for this reason, or they're doing it for this reason, or they're doing it because this, basically. So it makes it sound as if they actually are doing it because they care, or they do it because whatever God-given reason that they got, they basically do it for those reasons. So it's one of those things where it's like you kind of sort of got to be able to roll with the punches on those things so you can actually figure out what's what and what's who when it comes down to it. Because the sad part about that is a lot of these topics, what's up, MGTOW to win? A lot of these topics are easily debunkable if you actually literally think about them for a while and think about the ramifications and fallouts from all these topics. So basically, the series was started based on the fact that somebody asked me my honest opinions on these things. So now I'm giving my honest opinions on these things. And this is the last one that I got like a bunch of information on. So like I said, if you have anything that you want me to talk about or debunk, feel free to leave it in the comment section or email me or hit me in Discord and let me know what topics you want me to debunk, and I'll be happy to do a video on it. Or just ask me what do you think my opinion is on something, basically, and I'll either do a video debunking it or I'll do a video, arguing for it for all intents and purposes. So without further ado, I've already, held it up telling you the backstory on this lovely how this podcast came to be. Without further ado, let's talk about the topics that we're debunking. Again, I'm gonna repeat them one more time for those who weren't here in the first place. Topic number 1 is Purple Pill. Topic number 2 is DS Dynamic, who's really in power. Topic number 3 is Men Who Sell a Lifestyle. You pretty much know what that is all about. But Men Who Sell a Lifestyle, basically. My honest opinions and debunking that too. 4 Single Mothers Because Man. um, which is I'm going to debunk that one too, and abortion based on climate change and our rate, basically. So those are the topics for today. Those are the 5 topics I'm going to be debunking today. Let's have fun with this shit. Um, the simp to I already made it. I already estimated that already. I said 10 for every red pill or MGTOW man. There's 10 simps basically. So I've already covered that MGTOW to win. 10 for every MGTOW red pill man. There's 10. It is what it is. When you start throwing in SYSBM and SYSBM and herbivore men and people like that, then it may go down no, it doesn't really go down too often, but I'm gonna say about 10, between 8 and 10 is the ratio. 1 to 10 or 1 to 8 basically is the ratio for that. I said that many times in a video. I said for every one man in the manosphere, there's about like 8 to 10 simps out there. Simps, white knights, and cucks, basically, that are willing to put themselves into the fire that is women. Goodness gracious. Now, let's continue on with these lovely topics. I'm going to start off with the let's see, which one do I want to start off with? We'll start off with the DS dynamic. Who's really in power? Who really has the power, basically? The DS dynamic, for all intents and purposes. The DS dynamic is probably the weakest, the only dynamic in the whole entire structure that has the least amount of power, where the person who is person that's supposedly in power has the least amount of power, for all intents and purposes. What I mean by that is when it comes to the DS dynamic, Dom submissive dynamic, the problem is that the submissive one has to actually give you the permission to do all this stuff. It's pretty much how it works. So the person that's submitting to you has to give you the permission to do all the stuff that they want want done, or you want done, for all intents and purposes. They have to give you the permission to degrade yourselves to doing this stuff, for all intents and purposes. It's typically how that works. The irony to that is what they leave out when it comes to the DS dynamic is that the submissive person can actually call it anytime they want, which makes the DS dynamic the most, probably the least, gives the person that's doing the DS dynamic, the person that's the Dom, has the least amount of power when it comes to that. A good example of somebody with more power in this type of dynamic would be a DDLG, basically. Dom game, daddy Dom, little girl, basically, has one of the more power. You get more power from that than you do from the DS dynamic for this reason. That's the overall problem with the DS dynamic, is the fact that the person's relinquishing power within reason to you, while on top of that, you're only in power as long as that person lets you be in power. Because the person can pull the ripcord anytime they want to in that dynamic. It's the only dynamic where you really don't have all the power once you actually think about it logically. Because the person has a safe word, or the person can call it off anytime they want to, or the person can stop the humiliation anytime they want to, once you think about it. That's typically how that works. So this is why the DS dynamic is not as strong as everybody makes it out to be. And if you're going to do anything, I would go with any of the other things within the within those dynamics, basically. And I'll be doing a video tomorrow on that one. Actually, no, I'll be doing a video tomorrow. No, I'm sorry, I lied. I'll be doing a video on that Sunday on the different dynamics, basically, and where they rank at in the pecking order from the person with the most power to the least amount of power, basically. So I'll be touching on that on Sunday when it comes down to it. So what happens with the DS dynamic is, like I said, you only have power as long as the person lets you have the power. You only have power as long as the person is willing to relinquish the power to you. This is typically why the DS dynamic actually fails. And this is typically why you can never get a successful relationship out of a DS dynamic. It's pretty much how it works. Like I said, you have a better chance of doing DDLG and have a more power over the situation than you do DS dynamic, because the person only has to accept what they're willing to accept on the receiving end of that, or on that's on the giving end or receiving end of that, basically, depending on how you look at it. If they're licking your boot or if they're doing anything like that, they have the power to call it at any time, saying that I don't want to do that. Whereas with DDLG, she basically just has to take the D for all intents and purposes. Um, which is actually much more stronger. It's a much more stronger dynamic than Dom dynamic than that one. Most definitely, that one's actually at the bottom of the pecking order, but bottom of the totem pole. It will rank up there with if you went to what is it, Stockholm's or Sweden, not Sweden, or if you went to Sweden, or if you went to Amsterdam, basically, and you went to the red light district to be abused, basically, there's a safe word you can use. So the person beating you only has power up until you tell them to stop, or up until you can't take the punishment anymore. So in all technicality, the person never really has that power. The same thing that goes for the men who like women to just sit on their face or jump on their chest, or be thrown around or manhandled by a big woman, basically. Them women actually have more power than the DS dynamic in that one, where the women are picking you up and throwing you around for all intents and purposes. Also, in the same token, the women that sit there and bounce their asses on your face repeatedly over and over again on your chest actually has more power than the DS dynamic as well too. Um, so basically, those ones are typically end up at the bottom of the totem pole because they require some type of abuse or some type of humiliation to the opposite party, basically. So they end up falling at the bottom because there's only but so much somebody's willing to be humiliated before they say, yell, stop. So that's typically how that works. So the sad part about that is in a DS dynamic, you actually don't have the power. The person who's letting you do this to them, or participating in this on the opposite end, who's not the Dom, actually has all the power in that dynamic for all its purposes. Is the best way I can describe it to you. Yeah, that's typically how that works. Let's see. Moving right along, we'll move to the single mom because man, basically, topic. Now, the single mom because man topic is literally a topic that always gets brought up by women. I see them on social media always talking about this stuff, and they're always trying to make it sound like they weren't the guilty party, or they was just there, and somebody happened to show up and they had an immaculate conception, basically. One of those things where they make it sound like they weren't at fault for the whole entire thing, when in fact you're just as at fault for it as anybody else for all intents and purposes. And what I mean by that is typically you get a lot of women, single moms, that'll blame the man for not being a part of the child's life, or blame the man for everything they do. And there's typically two types of single moms that do this: ones that get divorced, and ones that try to set up a relationship with somebody that only wanted to smash and dash. It's typically how that works. So typically how it works is, for the ones that want to smash and dash, it's pretty obvious. Basically, they thought maybe having a child would make this person stay or change the person's attitude towards them for all intents and purposes, and it did nothing more than make it compound more problems for all intents and purposes. And the other one's basically a divorced mom, a divorced woman, basically gets a divorce from her husband because she thinks she can do better, and now she's dragging along two kids, and now she's a single mom, and she's divorced for the rest of her lives, basically. And that's typically how that works. The sad part about that is single moms have too much baggage. Like I said, when it comes to the difference between a single mom and a single dad, is the single dad really doesn't have too much baggage. The baggage that a single mom has is basically leftover behavioral problems from her children, along with other things on top of that, her behavior and the fact that she chose the man that she chose and ended up in the situation that she's in, or the fact that she chose the man that she did, ended up abused, or the fact that she chose the man that she did, ended up in a situation that she chose and ended up in the first place. Let it be, oh well, he was this and he was that in a marriage, and I got to divorce him now. And typically, single moms make these decisions. The sad part about that is, at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, you have no one else to blame but yourself. It's typically how it works. Because the sad part about that, you went on this hope and dream that by having this child, you would change his mind and he would come around and stuff like that, when in fact, what you did was compound more problems on top of your problems. So you can't be mad at the guy for not sticking around when he wasn't meant to stick around in the first place, or that wasn't his thing. Because typically, a lot of women, they typically try to husband up, or boyfriend up men that just want to smash. And I've always found it funny how women always describe these men, and when in fact all he wants is in and out. You can't sit up here and talk about, like, this, that, and the other, when all he wanted was to be in and out for all intents and purposes. Because the sad part about that is a lot of these women typically get into these relationships thinking that, well, maybe this and well, maybe that. And it's like, no, that's not how this works. That's not how this works in the least bit, lady. I'm gonna need you to chill out and actually understand how this actually works. The sad part about that is a lot of women get into this mess and they always think that, because they do this, that, and the other, that, it'll change what they got going on for all intents and purposes, when in fact it really doesn't. And the sad part about that is how women actually come to grips on coming up with these decisions that they make, when in fact they make the worst decisions in the whole entire world. Like, a good example of that is, like I was saying, you pick a guy and ends up being abusive, and now you're upset by it. Like, you're upset with him for being abusive, when in fact you knew he was abusive when you first met him. This is not something that just comes out of nowhere. There were signs that this was happening at the beginning. Or, you'll hear women say, well, the baby daddy left me. Well, the problem with that is the problem with that is it's not the fact that he left you, it's the fact that you got yourself into a mess that you don't need to be in, and now you're reaping what you sow from the mess, from the fallout of that mess. So it's one of those things. It's one of those things where, like, you as a single mom have to realize that not all not everything that glitters is gold. And the reason why you're a single mom is because your poor decision making skills. Like I said, if you're a single mom, you're only a single mom for two reasons. One is you're a widow, and two is because a series of bad decisions that you made in your life. And that's typically how it works. It's a series of bad decisions that you make in your life that actually puts you in this predicament. Like I said, I'm not shaming you. I'm basically merely telling the truth on, you basically chose a guy who only wanted to be your temporary guy, who wanted to just basically be a one night stand, or he just wanted to he wanted you to be his booty call, and you try to turn him into a permanent person. That's typically how this shit works. Or you met a guy and, like, he just wanted to have sex and have fun, and it turned into something more than it needed to be. Um, um, and that's the cold hard reality about it. That's the cold hard reality when it comes down to it. Um, because the sad part about that is the sad part about that is when it comes down to it, the problem that you're having isn't the fact that you can get a guy. Any woman can get a guy. That's just it. Any woman can get a guy. Even the fattest woman can get a guy. Even the most ugliest woman can get a guy. That's not a problem. The problem that you have is keeping a guy and being able to select a guy properly to basically take you through for the rest of your life. The sad part about that, like I said, when you make a series of bad decisions, like I said, this is typically what happens when you make a series of bad decisions on this. Basically, you pick a guy that only wants to smash, and now you try to turn him into your forever guy, and he doesn't want to be your forever guy, and he's always doing wrong, and he's always cheating, and this, that, and the other, and that's basically a sign that he doesn't want to be your forever guy. However, women think in the back of their mind they can change the guy by having his children, which typically ends up never really working out too well. You end up with a bunch of single mothers at this point in time that thought, that this guy would be the greatest guy in the world for their children. And the sad part about that is this goes to show women's poor decision making skills, which ends up being a series of bad decisions. The first decision you made was trying to make a guy that didn't want to be your guy your forever guy. One. Two, if you're in an abusive relationship or if he's cheating on you, you choosing to stick around thinking that maybe if you have children, he'll stick around longer. Two, basically he's cheating on you and you chose to stick around, or he's abusing you and you chose to stick around, basically. That's two. Then you having a child to compound the problems that you already have is decision three. then any decisions after that you make after that is having another child or having a following child or sticking around after he cheats on you or sticking around after he collects an STD, which ends up being a series of bad decisions. It's typically how that is. And I don't mean it to be mean. It's a series of bad decisions that you made in your life. And this is the reason why you are where you are in your life for all intents and purposes. Because the sad part about that is I know a lot of women who sit up here and resent the men that are their baby daddies when in fact, if you look at the man, he wasn't willing to stick around anyway. He didn't want to stick around. He just wanted to have fun and smash and dash for all intents and purposes. That's all he really wanted to do. He wanted to have a one night stand or he wanted you to be his booty call. He didn't want to be a baby daddy. And that's typically how it is, because a lot of men will say that, but then a lot of women will choose to keep the baby because of that. Then they want to be upset that they have nobody helping them raise their babies. That's your fault. That's your fault for choosing wrong. And that's another bad decision that you make, because now the fifth and sixth decision is the fact that you thought this and you basically chose this and you basically chose this life, and now you're upset that you have nobody to take care of your children or raise your children or help you with anything or try to help you out for all intents and purposes. So it's one of those things where like you get yourself into this constant mess by making a series of bad decisions. Like I know one woman, she was with this guy, she was with one guy and she slept with him and he was no good and she had a child by him. Then she chose to stick around with him even though he's cheating on her, and she had another child by him, and she still just stick around again and had a third child by him, and now she has 3 children and she's a single mom now. And that's the cold hard truth. Now she has 3 children and her man is upstate. Like the decisions you make is the decisions you make. And I remember talking to her. She goes, "Well, I never had a problem with him. I know if I needed some money from him, I can get money from him." Why the hell do you have to ask them to get money from him anyway? You shouldn't have to ask that. That should be something that he should be offering already off the bat if it's his children. That's just me though. Which is the 5th, 6th, and 7th bad decision for the fact that you have 3 children to this man. The fact that you have to actually call and ask him for money is a bad thing in the first damn place. The fact that you have to call and do this shit is bad. This is typically how this shit works. Now that he's in prison, you can't really get money out of him. Like, think about this shit. So it's one of those things where you end up in a mess and it's your fault, but you don't ever want to really admit that it's your fault. And you always want to pass it off as his fault or anything else. But the fact of the matter is it takes 2 to tango. It's funny how it takes 2 to tango applies when you want to trap a man into a relationship. Is pretty much how it is. But it's funny how it takes 2 to tango doesn't apply. It's funny how it takes 2 to tango doesn't apply when you want to get an abortion, you want to abort a baby, or you want to it doesn't matter when you want to keep the baby or something like that, even if he doesn't want to. So at the end of the day, you got to remember that rule. It takes 2 to tango. But it doesn't take 2 to tango when you want to get an abortion and when he wants to keep the baby. And it doesn't take 2 to tango when he wants to keep the baby, you want to get an abortion, which is typically how that works. So women tend to pick and choose when and where they want to, enforce the rules that they want to enforce for all intents and purposes. But it is what it is. And it's all funny when they end up growing up as being single mothers and end up stressed out and shit like that and working a menial job for all intents and purposes, which really sucks. And the sad part about that is a lot of these single mothers, it's sad, like my part-time job, I make more than a lot of these single mothers, all these single mothers put together probably, which is sad. And that's the cold hard truth when it comes down to it. So it's like one of those things where like they continuously get themselves into mess over and over again. And yeah, they're vaginal collateral. And it's true. Like they're vaginal collateral because 9 times out of 10, I'm willing to bet that's not the only man that they've been with. If they left the baby daddy a long time ago, and 9 times out of 10, he probably creeps his way back in for more D every now and again, along with a lot of other goofy ass niggas that they've messed with for all intents and purposes, and they're not with no more. So typically, that's end up how that works. Is you on top of your children. That on top of the children that you decided to have, on top of the original relationship you decided to have, on top of the, if it was abusive or he was cheating on you or, anything like that decision that you made in that relationship, Now you're making now you're making more bad decisions by bringing other men around your children and shit like that. So now this is what they believe how a relationship is supposed to work, and this is how it's supposed to be. It's typically how it is. So now if you have a daughter, this is what your daughter sees, and this is what your daughter believes. And now if you have sons, this is how they believe that they should, treat their significant other. And the sad part about that is when it comes down to it, it's the most craziest, funniest thing in the world when you watch her children grow up and they end up not really making it in the world or doing anything with their lives for all intents and purposes, which kind of sucks at the end. But it's one of those things where it's like, well, it was bound to happen. Um, so it's one of those things. Um, Moving on to the next topic of abortion. Abortion because rape, or abortion because of climate change for all intents and purposes. Now, I'm going to debunk this topic very quickly because I don't really need to be on this topic too long because this is a bullshit topic. But to be honest with you, like you always hear from feminists, well, what about the climate and this, that, and the other, or what about the climate? We don't have we're going to overpopulate the world and the world can't handle us and this, that, and the other. Or my other favorite one is she only got an abortion because of she was raped. Well, no, because abortions only make up like less than 1%, less than 1% of the people who actually go in for abortions. Most of them are like because it's an inconvenience. It's they can't afford it, or the daddy's not sticking around, or medical issues and stuff like that are the majority of those rapes. All the rest of them are other shit basically, but majority of them are because it's going to inconvenience her life. She can't afford it, and the baby daddy's not around. Is the majority of the abortions that go on in the United States for all intents and purposes. So it's one of those things, are because you had a baby to a lame, you got to abort the baby basically because that's not who you want a baby to, or because you couldn't wrap it up basically, or could keep your legs closed for all intents and purposes. And that's one of those things where it's like you end up with an abortion for this reason. However, well, I will say this for the fact that rape ends up only being like one less than 1% to 1% of the overall women who get abortions. That kind of sort of blows that out the park and blows that out of the water for that reason, because that's just some bullshit. The other talking point I always hear a lot of feminists say is, "What's up, no sweetheart?" The other talking point I always hear a lot of women say is, "What's up, Jaguar Media too?" Another talking point that I always hear women say is that overpopulation and climate control and this, that, and the other, and climate change and this, that, and the other. Here's the problem with that statement. When it comes down to it, the earth doesn't need you to protect it. The earth already has things in place to protect itself from stupidity. It's been doing this a lot longer than the humans been around. It's been doing this a lot longer than living things been on it. Trust me, if it was sick of us, it would simply just shake us off like fleas. That's typically how that works. Because the earth is, at the end of the day, the earth pretty much knows what it needs to do to extend his life or prolong his life. Trust me, if it's going to be climate change, it's for a reason. It's done on purpose because the earth kind of figures, well, I'm gonna need to, quiet down these humans on me because they're acting a straight fool. So typically what earth does is basically do something every now and again to, set you back or fuck you up basically on purpose. That's typically how that works. If the earth has a problem with us, it'll take it out on us. That's pretty much how the earth works. The same thing goes for the dinosaurs. The same thing goes for everything else. If the earth need to call in reinforcements, the earth will call in reinforcements to take care of everything that it needs to take care of. So it's one of those things. It's one of those things where like all these women that run around talk about I'm getting an abortion because we need to control the population because of climate and the earth won't be here and this, that, and the other. No, trust me, the earth will be here long before you're gone. Long after you're gone, the earth will still be here. And if you don't have any children, You ain't got to worry about it because none of your children will be around to see the end of the earth anyway. Because your lineage is going to die off very quickly, and that's typically how it works. For all the women who don't want to have children, bye. Say bye bye to your lineage for me because that's pretty much what's going to happen to you. So it's one of those things where like the earth is going to shake it off no matter what. The earth always shakes it off, whether you like it or not. The earth is pretty much built like that. The earth's a savage. The earth's a fucking beast when it comes to shit like that. So if the earth gets tired of us, the earth will simply just shake us off like a dog shakes off fleas. That's all it would ever be. The sad part about that is at the end of the day, all this stuff is nothing more than the earth giving us warning shots, basically letting us know we're fucking up. And we could catch the demise of the dinosaurs, or we can catch the demise of many other people before us. That's typically all it really is. Let it be a flood. Because the sad part about that, we talk about, ice caps melting and floods and stuff like that. This shit's happened before. This has happened multiple times before in history with less pollution and less fog and less shit, basically, and less all this other stuff. So the sad part about that is, even with less stuff, back in the Iron days or the medieval days or, the fire days, basically, shit like this has been going on for forever. The Earth has probably experienced anywhere between, 2, 3 floods already, with or without us being here. So it's one of those things where it's like, that lets me know that the Earth can take care of itself. It's not something that you really have to worry your pretty little dumb head about for all intents and purposes when it comes to the Earth and overpopulating the Earth. Trust me, if we were overpopulating the Earth will let us know that we're overpopulating the Earth. It's typically how that works. And it's one of those things where like you run into all these dumb people that say this dumb shit on a regular basis, and they always want to know when and why. And you have to have a certain amount of people. You have to have a certain amount of subs to get super chat. No, sweetheart. But it's typically one of those things where, and the sad part about that is when it comes to Earth, the Earth has been through this multiple times. It's been through rapid cooling, rapid heating, rapid cooling, rapid heating, rapid cooling, rapid heating. So it's not shocking to me if it kills us off anyway. Because the sad part about that, at the end of the day, if it does kill us off, we all deserve to die any fucking way. I'm just keeping it 100 with all these fucking pansy ass people that always talk about the Earth and shit like that and this, that, and the other. The sad part about that is, at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, trust me, Mother Earth got it herself. She can handle herself. She's a big girl. She's a really, really big girl. She can handle herself. She's been doing this a lot longer than humans been alive. She's been doing this a lot longer than the Old Testament. She's been doing this a lot longer than, hell, the Iron Age, the dinosaurs, the Stone Age, all this other stuff. She's been doing this a long, long time. She's been doing this. It's just a repeated cycle, basically. It's wash, rinse, repeat with Mother Earth. Once you start getting out of hand, she'll start washing, rinsing, and repeating all over again. That's pretty much how it works. So I'm gonna need y'all to knock it off with this whole entire climate change thing for the fact that this has happened multiple times before. This ice cap thing has been a thing before. This ice cap thing, I think, has happened 2 times already in Earth's history, if not more. So this ain't nothing new to Mother Earth. Hell, trust me, if a good volcano goes off, she's going to have a flood or a tsunami and stuff like that. So it's typically how that works. She's basically letting you know that y'all are fucking up, and this is how this is going to work. It's typically how this is. So it's one of those things where like you can not worry about Mother Earth because Mother Earth got this. She got this more than you got this. She don't need you to have this for her. She got this her fucking self. She's been doing this for billions and billions of years. Billions of years. Billions and billions and probably trillions of years. I think they say the Earth is like more than several billion, maybe a couple trillion years old. So trust me, she's been doing this for a while. She got this. She don't need your dumbass. She don't need your dumbass doing anything for all intents and purposes. And the sad part about that, like Jaguar Media said, even if a volcano goes off, there's a bunch of species of things that's pretty much going to be extinct anyway. And things go extinct, new things get reborn, and new things go extinct every day for all intents and purposes. So that's typically how this works. So it's one of those things where like it's one of those things where like you could just knock it off because Mother Earth got this. She's been doing this for a long time. She don't need your help. She pretty much can bitch slap you and keep it moving for all intents and purposes. She got yeah, so you're pretty fine. You're fine. Trust me. Especially if China grew at the rate that it did and India grew at the same rate that that did. So it's one of those things where it's like, trust me, they own half the world. They pretty much are, if not half the world's population, if not more than half the world's population, just them two countries alone. So trust me, if they can grow that big, anybody else can grow that damn big. And it's one of those things where it's like, so knock it off and knock off this whole entire climate change. And we need, if we need, we use more energy. No, see, we don't use that much energy in the United States. China and India and all the developing countries use more energy than us and actually pollute way more than we do. So I'm gonna need you to cut it out with that shit and get your facts straight. Just because we have all these babies, that don't mean we need to use more energy. We're a bit more efficient than India and China right now for all of these purposes when it comes to energy use and energy consumption. So knock it off and keep it moving. Next topic being the last two topics. Um, let's see, which one do I want to touch on? Lifestyles or purple pill? Purple pill or lifestyles? I'll touch on the men who sell lifestyles. The men who sell lifestyles are typically the men who sell lifestyles are typically nothing more than men who can't really quite leave, can't really quite men who sell lifestyles are basically nothing more than men who try to make it sound like it's okay and they're alpha males and stuff like that when in fact they're really not. Typically a lot of the lifestyles that I'm talking about are your, life coaching, dating coaching, bachelor, bachelor lifestyle, stuff like that. If they're selling you this stuff or they're selling you the any type of lifestyle, let it be free agent or anything like that, basically, the sad part about that is that's nothing more than a nice way of saying, I'm leaving, but I still want to smash, which means that you still need validation. Typically, a lot of these people walk around acting all cock diesel, acting like they're big and tough because of the things they actually have. The thing with the life, the thing with the thing with these lifestyle, or the stuff with the people who sell you lifestyles is they're nothing more than what their property is, or nothing more than what they own. So basically, it's a nice little cock walk to walk around to actually make yourself sound cooler and bigger than what you really are, when in fact you're really not. So it's one of those things where you typically get yourself into a lot of messes because you want to portray this image of something that you're really not. And I always watch these guys when I watch their videos, and they're always walking around, always trying to strut around and showing off their houses and showing off their stuff and showing off their cars and showing off their street that they live on and showing off all this shit is basically nothing more than insecurity. That's all it is. All that shit is insecurity. Because at the end of the day, if you have this stuff, you don't need to show it off to everybody. So at the end of the day, when you see these men in their videos where they're showing off their life, they're showing off their house, or they're showing off the street that they live on, or they're walking around looking all cock diesel, or they're walking around horseback riding or something like that, or or doing something on a beach, is pretty much nothing more, or their cars too. It's typically nothing more than them showing off. Basically, it's basically, think of it like this. You always see that one guy who drives like the Mercedes, and you always want to talk shit on him and say he's basically overcompensating for his dick, or if he has a Corvette or a Lamborghini, he's overcompensating for his lack of penis. Basically, that's typically what these guys are doing. They're overcompensating for their lack of actual manlyhood, or lack of self sufficiency, or self worth, or self security, and or their own manhood for all intents and purposes. Is all that's really doing. So typically, what they're doing is basically they're selling you this lifestyle that you're actually buying into. So what happens with that is you pay into this lifestyle. And now that you're paying into this lifestyle, they get to live this lifestyle and get to drive around in these nice cars and have this nice house in a nice neighborhood and do all this shit, basically. Even if they were divorced, basically you're paying for divorced men. That's pretty much all you're really paying for is divorced men. And think about it. They're in a hole. They're in a hole because their wife took them to the cleaners, and so now that they've been in failed relationships, now they want to sell a lifestyle to you, basically telling you that well, this, that, and the other, and I'm living my best life and this, that, and the other, when in fact, the only reason why they're living their best life is because you're actually financing their best life. It'd be no different than a Twitch thought. So everybody who sells these lifestyles to you and tell you about these lifestyles, they're basically Twitch thoughts for all intents and purposes. So that's my exact feelings that I feel about these people who sell these lifestyles, or these games, or this lifestyle, or any lifestyle that they could possibly sell you and make money off of you on, and use it for their lifestyle, and not really put it back into their channel. Because a lot of them, like, there's some that'll put some back into their channel, but they'll finance the rest of their lifestyle with the rest of the money that they get from you. They're basically nothing more than Twitch thoughts. That's all they are. That's all they will ever be. And that's the cold hard truth about them. They're basically walking around. They're basically a bunch of insecure men walking around. They're basically a bunch of insecure men walking around trying to pretend that there's something that they're really not, when in fact, you're the one that's actually supplying their lifestyle for them. They're nothing more than Twitch thoughts. They're nothing more than YouTube thoughts, basically. So all the men who sell this lifestyle are basically nothing more than YouTube thoughts or Twitch thoughts. I don't care what the lifestyle is. If it's being sold, they're Twitch thoughts. The same thing goes for female life coaches too, female dating coaches, all these people. You're basically financing their lives, and they're basically nothing more than thoughts for all intents and purposes. Let them be men or women, they're thoughts at the end of the day. So typically how it works is typically how this works is they basically are a bunch of men who lost everything, and so they can feel better about themselves. They make you pay for everything. Pretty much like that one Twitch thought that, that had all the men buy her a new house. Then all of a sudden, that new house is gone, and now she wants a new apartment. So the question is, where does she spend all that money for a new house at? And why does she want a new apartment now? Now she's trying to pretend like she never had that stream for that house. And now she's going for a condo now. Like, let that shit sink in. Let that shit sink in and swirl around in your head for a little bit. That's typically what these lifestyle people are doing. They're basically selling you a dream so you can finance their lives. It is what it is. Whether they like it or not, I really don't care what they got to say about them. Fuck them, fuck their faces, and fuck their days. That's pretty much how I feel about them. Fuck them, fuck their faces, and fuck their days. And if they have a problem with that, I'm gonna need them to walk their tough asses over to me. I'll be happy to drop my address in the description box below, and I'll drag their punk asses. That's pretty much how I feel about them. Any single one of them. Let it be a player, a pickup artist, a fucking somebody that preaches game or sells game. Let it be a fucking lifestyle coach, or I don't give a damn what the lifestyle is. Free agent. I don't give a fuck what the lifestyle is. If they want to sell it and they got a problem with what I got to say about it, tell them Tico said. Feel free to walk up on Tico and find out how tough your lifestyle is, because you'll find out very quick how cushy your lifestyle is, because you'll find out very quickly how soft your ass is. And that's pretty much how I feel about people who do that shit. They're soft ass motherfuckers who got ruined, and now they want to sell you some dream to make money off of you to finance their lifestyle that they were ruined in the first damn place. Again with the single mothers, series of bad decisions. So now they got to sell you on their bad decision that they made to make it sound like their bad decision wasn't all that bad, and now you can do good. That's typically how this actually works. So if you're going to sell a lifestyle, feel free to drop me a link if you got a problem with what I got to say, or talk shit on me in your videos like y'all normally do, all quietly, because y'all can't do it to y'all. Y'all can't say my name out loud because y'all a bunch of punk ass bitches, basically. So y'all would never say my name out loud like y'all got some fucking sense. I'm gonna need y'all to take y'all blouse out or put a gap where your blouse is and talk some shit to a real nigga if you want to. And you'll find out very quickly how much of a real nigga y'all ain't. And when I say niggas, I mean black, white, Chinese, Puerto Rican, Asian, Hispanic, whoever the fuck you are. You'll find out very quickly how tough you're not. It's that simple. I'm getting tired of all this bullshit and that shit. And y'all want to pretend like y'all this tough, cool person when in fact, y'all ain't shit. Y'all ain't shit just like Twitch thoughts ain't shit. It is what it is. And I'm willing to call you out for it. All these other people are willing to kiss your ass. I'm willing to call you out for it. I don't give a fuck about you. Fuck you, fuck your face, and fuck your day. If you have a problem with that, Be happy to dial me up and call me or email me. I'll be happy to give you my phone number and my address, and I'll be happy to drop you. I'll be happy to drop you faster than a bad habit. I'll be happy to drop you faster than your wife dropped you and took your money. How about them apples? I'll be happy to drop you faster than your wife dropped you, took your money, took half your shit and your kids. What, nigga? What? Because I'm done playing with these little faggot fucks, basically. That's all they are, is a bunch of faggot fucks. All these men around here preaching all this shit, they're more gay than gay people. So at the end of the day, I don't give a fuck about them. They can all get into a car accident, hang themselves, go fuck with all the women they want to. They can fall off a bridge, they can kill themselves. I really don't care about them. Because I have no sympathy for motherfuckers that use motherfuckers. Especially when you're trying to make yourself look all cool. You're sitting there strutting in the video, trying to strut like you all cool and shit. Nigga, you ain't cool. Nigga, I'll blast you dead in your fucking chest. I'll concave your fucking chest, nigga. Don't walk around like you tough when you're really not all that tough. Only the reason why you think you're tough is because you got a bunch of money. Problem with a bunch of money is you can't take it with you if you're in the refrigerator tomorrow. I'm just throwing that out there to you, and I'm just keeping it 100. You can't take that money with you if you're in the refrigerator tomorrow. Just keeping it 100. Just keeping it 100, nigga. And that's typically how I feel about a lot of these dumbass fucks, basically, that teach this shit and preach this shit. And if they don't like it, that's just too fucking bad. If they got a problem with it, they can feel free to come see me, and I'll blast them in their fucking chest. I'll blast them in their fucking chest, or I'll slit their throat like it ain't shit. In the famous words of Jeezy, I hang with real niggas that'll cut your throat, and they don't drink Pepsi, they just sell Coke, nigga. What? Let's just keep it 100. That's the type of niggas I hang with. But it's typically how that works, and that's pretty much how I feel about them idiots, for all intents and purposes. They're a bunch of fucking idiots, and they're basically selling you some bullshit, basically, because they done ruined their lives, and now they're trying to look cool off your dime now. And they're trying to walk around and strut and look cool off your dime, trying to drive cars, show off their houses and shit like that. I don't need to use men to get money where my money. I basically get money the right way without using a man to do it, basically. You should never use men in a manosphere to get money, basically. You should never use men, period, to get money. It's bad enough they got to pay a lot of other shit as is going on in these days anyway. Now they got your ass taken out of their fucking pockets like you a fucking Twitch thought and shit on YouTube. But I digress. Moving on to the next topic. Purple pill lifestyle. Purple pills. It's a nice way of saying I can't leave the plantation, and I have very low standards, and I don't have any discipline. That's all purple pill is. The lack of discipline, a lack of standards, and the fact that you just can't leave the plantation, and you pretty much got to be there. That's all purple pill really is. It's a lack of concentration, or a lack of that's a lack of concentration and a lack of discipline, for all intents and purposes. You're basically hoeing. You're basically a hoe. You're no different than everybody else. You're no different than a pickup artist. You're no different than all the other people. Thing you're pretty much talking shit on. You're pretty much a hoe. You're a fucking hoe. And you'll simp yourself out to the nearest woman. That's how it pretty much works. Because something I've noticed about a lot of the purple pill people is the women that they pick up end up not being all that great. I wouldn't date them. I wouldn't even get a crackhead to date them. I wouldn't even put them again. I wouldn't even set them up with my worst enemy. Half these women that a lot of these purple pill people date, I wouldn't set them up with any of my enemies, because I got standards, and if I'm going to pick out a girl for my enemies, I'm going to pick out somebody who's going to be worth their while. Even though I want them dead, I'm going to pretty much give them the best girl that they could possibly have before I off them, basically. That's typically how I feel about my enemies. Like, I'm not going to set my enemies up with none of the girls that they date. Because at the end of the day, all the girls that they date really aren't shit. Because think about it. Typically, a lot of times, a lot of these girls that purple pillars date, done been ran on the cock carousel any fucking way. They're either single mothers, they've been on a cock carousel, they're in college and on a cock carousel, they're in their middle ages on a cock carousel. They're basically all used up thoughts, basically. So I can't give props to somebody like the purple pill community for that reason, because what you're basically saying to me is, I can't control my urges. I have no discipline, Tico. So I need to go fuck a hoe. Or I need to go fuck these bitches, basically. Is all you're really saying to me. You're no different than men who pretty much bounce on their obligations, or who want to game every other men for all intents and purposes, or game the system. You're no different than the Twitch dot either. You're using people instead of actually finding the strength within yourself to actually better yourself and not need women like that. You're basically using everybody else under the sun. Basically, you're basically falling victim to a lack of discipline. And when you have a lack of discipline, you tend to get yourself into a lot of shit. When you get yourself into a lot of shit, do you want to justify it by running at me sideways on some bullshit that you'll never win with me, for the fact that I've been doing this for 14 years, nigga. You only been doing this for a couple. I do this in many languages. You do this in one. I do this in Arabic. I do this in Hindi. I do this in Hebrew. I do this in Russian. I do this in Portuguese, and I also do it in Spanish. That's just minimum of the shit that I do this in. That's just the minimum of the shit that I do this in. And I didn't even cover the rest of the language that I do this shit in. So I've been doing this a lot longer than you. I know this thing a lot better than you, and you would never be better at me than this, if for all intents and purposes, because you're nothing more than a beta. You're a beta who is stuck on a plantation and don't want to admit to themselves they're stuck on a plantation. That's all purple pill is. You're a fucking beta who's stuck on a plantation and don't want to admit that he's stuck on a plantation. You're a cuck, and you're a fucking cuck, basically. You're a fucking cuck and a white knight, and you'll pretty much cape for women anytime you want them, anytime they need you to. The sad part about that is people that have purple pill are this and more, and they lack self-control, and they lack discipline. Because the sad part about that is they'll say, well, I'm more red pilled than this person, or how are you going to, you can't say that they're more, yeah, I am. I've been doing this all my fucking life. I've been doing this on the internet for 14 fucking years. I've been red pilling motherfuckers since I picked up my degree in psychology. I've been red pill motherfuckers, basically. I've been raised to red pill motherfuckers, and I've been red pilling motherfuckers for 14 years as a psychologist. You ain't got nothing on me. You would never be able to out-argue me, out-debate me, or anything. That's just some wishful thinking, and that's just a dream. You have a better chance of jacking off and making a wall pregnant than beating me in an argument, for all intents and purposes, than beating me in a debate. It's typically how that works. You have a better chance of jacking off and making a wall pregnant than you do to ever beat me in a debate, or ever coming at me, or ever besting me, period. So for all these purple pillars, get some discipline, get some fucking standards, and better your fucking selves. That's all it is. You're a bunch of dumpster diving bastards who can't control their own damn urges, or have no discipline. Because the sad part about that is, I talk about this quite often. There's nothing more powerful than a man that could turn down pussy. Nothing more powerful than a man that could turn down some pussy. And I'm willing to bet any money I turn down more pussy than you get in a year. I've shot down more pussy than you probably get in 10 years. I shot down more pussy in 1 year than you'll ever get your whole entire lifetime. Like I said, when it hit 78, I stopped counting. And quite frankly, it hit 78 back in like May. So I stopped counting after 78, and I'm still getting propositions from random motherfuckers, basically. So at the end of the day, you're nothing more than a bunch of betas who can't control their own emotions. You're nothing more than a bunch of beta or cucks or white knights that basically would date any fucking thing. You're pretty much, like I said, you're pretty much stick your dick in anything. You're willing to settle for anything. Let it be crazy, let it be fat, let it be, anything like that. You're willing to stick your dick in anything. I'm the one that told you to be a psych nurse. I've been doing this for 14 years as a psychologist. Trust me, there's nothing that you could do to say her to me that'll actually even shock me in the least bit. It's very hard to shock me or catch me off guard. I didn't hurt it all. There's nothing that could shock me. There's nothing that anybody can do in this world that can sit in front of me. There's nothing they can do and say that'll shock me or catch me off guard ever. Because I done seen it all and I done heard it all. From 4-year-olds all the way up to grown ass men and women. All the way up to your mom, your grandmamas and your grandmamas' grandmamas. I done heard it all from everybody. There's nothing you can say to me that'll shake me or do anything. The sad part about that is when it comes down to it, like I said, nothing stronger than a man that can turn down pussy. Now, the sad part about that is when I say this is that's coming off the heels of turning down like 5 women in the past week. So I think I probably turned down an average 5 or 4 to 7 people a week for pussy, for all intents and purposes, because I have standards. And it's simply one of those things where it's like, I don't just sleep with anything. I got standards. And the sad part of it, people have always talked about, well, I have standards too. Well, no, you don't. They're very low, or you don't have any at all. You're willing to fuck anything. You don't have any standards, especially when you're starting like online beef with motherfuckers. How you fucking people online that can throw your business out there? That's no standards, pimpin'. That's no standards. That automatically screams no standards when you can actually sit there and smash people who have an online presence and you want to tell me you got standards. That's like dating a stripper, that's like having sex with a stripper or banging a stripper or dating a stripper, a hooker, a prostitute, a porn star, a bartender, and a fucking waitress. And an OnlyFans girl. Or a Twitch thot. Like all them girls, I can't do none of them girls. I would never date anybody that works within that confines. Hell, I wouldn't even date a barista. I wouldn't even date a barber or a beautician. Like that's basically how I feel about those careers. They're the lowest of the low, and I'm not willing to lower my standards to date any of those motherfuckers. I'm not willing to lower my standards to even remotely fuck any of those motherfuckers. I'm not willing to lower my standards enough to even remotely want to kiss one of them motherfuckers. You do a service, get the fuck out of my face, basically. You're a bartender, serving my drinks and get the fuck out of my face. I'm typically not that mean when it comes to it, but typically that's how I am when they start crossing the line from, customer service person to like, behind the scene bedroom shit. I typically tell them to go fuck off. Or I tell them I don't date them. The same thing goes for single mothers. I just don't. No, I just don't. No. I'm not willing to do that either. And that's typically the asshole I am. I'm not willing to fuck a single mother. I'm not willing to kiss a single mother. I'm not willing to hug a single mother. I'm not willing to do anything with a single mother. Date a single mother, befriend a single mother, anything with a single mother. It is what it is. Because I have standards. And I need my friends to reflect my standards, basically. So if you're not my friend, or I don't like you, or I'm not willing to hang with you, that's because you have no standards in my eyes. You lack standards. You lack discipline, you lack control, and you lack standards. This is typically why I hang with a certain group of people that I hang with and don't hang with other motherfuckers, basically, because a lot of y'all motherfuckers lack standards. It is what it is. Like, it's one thing if you're improving, like I said, I'm fine with you improving. But at the end of the day, you got to have some standards. If you don't have those, You can't be mad at me for throwing salt in your wounds because you are who you are, and you are pretty much who you made yourself out to be. So at the end of the day, I don't care how you feel about it. And it's simply one of those things at the end of the day. Because if you're purple pill, that lets me know that you lack standards, you lack self-control, you lack self-awareness, and you lack discipline. That's pretty much what I see. You lack the discipline to actually be full red pill. I'm full red pill. You're not. Let's sort this shit out and fix yourself and make yourself a better version of yourself. I'm not saying you have to go MGTOW. I'm not saying you have to do all this extra shit. But how about you sort yourself out for reals and actually better yourself and give yourself better standards and fix yourself and make yourself a better version of yourself. That's all I ask. But motherfuckers, apparently that's too hard for some motherfuckers, especially if they grew up, in a household where they're over coddled and they always got their way. And, everybody was to agree with them because they were crybaby ass bitch men, basically. That's typically how I feel about those people. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my podcast. But yeah, it's one of those things where that was my podcast. Thank everybody for coming and listening. I appreciate everybody who showed up. I would like to thank everybody. Y'all have a good day. Be blessed. Take care of yourselves. Treat yourselves like milk and nut, but spoil yourselves. And always be willing to improve upon yourself and improve yourself and make yourself the better version of yourself. Never stop. Always be willing to learn. Always be willing to persevere and push through and be the best version of yourself you could possibly be. Make yourself the best version of what you were yesterday, the day before, and all that. For all intents and purposes, just make yourself the best version of yourself. That's all I ever ask for. That's all I ever want from men is for you to make yourself the best version of yourself. Y'all be blessed. Have a good one. And I'm going to play my outro. So y'all can enjoy my outro here. This is exactly how I feel about all these topics that I just debunked today. Let me play that one more time for you. But I digress, and y'all have a good one. Class dismissed. Adios.